The night was quiet on the edge of the colony. The small human outpost rested under the cold light of 2 alien moons. The streets were half empty, shops already closed, and only a few neon signs were glowing in the darkness. The colony was not rich. It was built from steel, dust, and hard work. But for travelers and drifters, it was a safe place to rest, drink, and forget their troubles. Inside a small bar, a human sat alone. He was not drunk. He was not even holding a glass. He just sat at a corner table, watching people, listening to voices, and waiting for the night to pass. His name was not known to most of the locals. They only called him the Outsider. He had arrived a few months ago, quiet, strong, and careful. He never spoke much, but people respected him because his eyes looked like he had seen too many battles. The bar was filled with mixed races, humans, aliens, traders, even smugglers. The music was low and the smell of cheap drinks floated in the air. It felt like a normal night. But sometimes normal nights hide strange storms. Suddenly the door opened with a violent push. A group of alien police stormed inside. Their armor was black and sharp and their eyes glowed with cold light. They carried long energy batons and their boots shook the wooden floor. Everyone went silent. Even the music stopped. The Outsider's eyes narrowed. He had seen soldiers before. These were not here for a casual check. They moved like hunters. They moved with purpose. The leader of the alien police shouted, his voice deep and harsh, "Where is she?" The bar owner froze. He stammered, Who do you mean?" The alien slammed his baton on the counter. Glasses shattered. "You know who. The fugitive. Bring her out." The Outsider stayed still. He did not know who they were searching for, but he could feel the fear rise in the room. People lowered their heads. Nobody wanted trouble. Nobody wanted to look into the alien's eyes, and then he saw her. At the back of the bar, behind a group of traders, a woman sat alone. She was not human. Her skin was pale silver, shining softly under the neon lights. Her dark eyes showed terror, but she tried to hide it. She whispered something under her breath, as if praying. The police saw her. "There!" one of them shouted. The woman jumped up, trying to run. But 2 aliens grabbed her arms. She struggled, kicked, and cried out, "No, please." The Outsider stood slowly. He could see the fear in her eyes. She looked around the room, desperate, but no one moved. People looked away. No one wanted to risk their lives. The leader of the alien police raised his baton and pressed it against her shoulder. Energy crackled and she screamed in pain. Her voice broke the silence like thunder. Something stirred inside the Outsider. He had promised himself never to interfere in colony problems. This was not his world, not his fight, but the scream cut through his chest like a blade. The woman locked eyes with him. Her lips trembled. She whispered, almost soundless, "Help me." The Outsider clenched his fists. He had seen war. He had seen cruelty. He knew what it meant when the strong crushed the weak. But this time he could not look away. The alien police dragged her toward the door. The bar stayed silent. Nobody moved. Fear held them all in chains, and then a chair scraped across the floor. The Outsider stepped forward. His voice was low, calm, but dangerous. "Let her go," the room gasped. The bar owner whispered, "No, don't." The alien leader turned his head slowly, eyes glowing with hate. "Human, you dare?" The Outsider stood firm. "She is not your prey tonight," the aliens laughed. One of them said, "This human thinks he is brave." Another replied, "He will die in seconds." But the Outsider did not blink. He walked closer, his boots echoing in the dead silence. The woman's eyes widened in shock. She had not expected anyone to stand for her. The leader raised his baton. "Leave now, or your bones will be broken." The Outsider tilted his head. His voice was steady. "Try." For a moment, the room held its breath. The alien police tensed, ready to strike. The woman struggled, shouting, "Don't! They will kill you!" But the Outsider only whispered to her, "Not tonight." And with that, the fight began. The first alien swung his baton. The Outsider moved fast, faster than anyone expected. He grabbed the alien's wrist, twisted it, and slammed him into the table. Bottles broke, sparks flew. The second rushed forward. The Outsider kicked him hard in the chest. The alien flew backward, crashing into chairs. The leader roared and attacked. Energy crackled, the baton swinging toward the Outsider's head. But the human ducked, grabbed a bottle, and smashed it across the leader's helmet. Sparks burst, the leader stumbled. The bar exploded with chaos. People screamed, ran for cover. Tables flipped. The woman pulled free from the alien grip and crawled behind the counter, her silver skin glowing in fear. The outsider fought with silent rage. His fists were heavy, his moves sharp. One after another, the aliens fell. He was only one human, but tonight one human was enough. Finally, the leader dropped to his knees, helmet cracked, eyes burning with fury. He growled, "You will regret this, human. You have no idea who she is." The outsider did not answer. He just stood, breathing slowly, fists still ready. The woman looked up at him, her voice shaking. You saved me." The outsider glanced at her, then at the broken alien police lying on the floor. His face was cold, unreadable. "This night," he said softly, "just became strange. And outside, under the alien moons, the storm of tomorrow was already waiting." The bar was silent again, but not with peace. Broken glass covered the floor. Smoke rose from shattered lights. The alien police lay on the ground, some groaning, some unconscious. People hid behind tables, too afraid to move. The air was thick with fear and shock. The outsider stood in the middle of the chaos. His fists were still tight, his chest rising with steady breaths. He had fought many battles before, but this one was different. This was not a war zone. This was a quiet colony bar, yet the violence here felt heavier than any battlefield. The woman he had saved peeked out from behind the counter. Her silver skin glowed faintly in the broken neon light. Her eyes were wide, still filled with fear, but also with something else. Hope. She whispered almost like a prayer. "You should not have done this." The outsider turned to her. His voice was calm but sharp. "They would have killed you." She shook her head quickly. "No, not kill. They wanted to take me." To him, the outsider narrowed his eyes. "Who?" Before she could answer, the leader of the alien police coughed, raising his head. Blood dripped from his lip. His helmet cracked, showing sharp alien teeth. He laughed bitterly. "You fool. Do you know who she is?" The outsider said nothing. He only watched. The alien spat on the floor. "She belongs to Korga, the Black Fang. You touched her. You fought for her. Now you will pay with your life." At that name, a wave of fear spread through the bar. People gasped. Some whispered, some even crawled toward the door to escape. The outsider stood still. He did not know the name, but he could feel its weight. The woman lowered her head, ashamed. The alien leader's voice grew weaker, but his eyes burned with rage. "Korga will come for you. His ships will burn this colony. You saved his wife, and that is a crime greater than death." The outsider stepped closer, his boots crunching on broken glass. He stared down at the alien leader. His words were cold. "Then you should not have hurt her." And with that, he struck the alien across the jaw. The leader collapsed, silent. The bar owner finally crawled out from under a table, his hands shaking. You don't understand, human. If this is true, if she is really his wife, then all of us are already dead." The outsider turned to the woman. She lowered her head, ashamed and silent. The people inside the bar began to mutter. "He doomed us. The gang will destroy everything. We should throw them both out." Fear turned into anger. Some colonists stood, pointing fingers, shouting at the outsider and the woman. The outsider raised his voice, steady but firm. "You all stayed silent when she cried. You all turned your eyes away. If I did the same, she would be gone now. If you think saving her is a crime, then I am guilty." The colonists fell silent again. Some looked away, ashamed. Others still glared with fear. The woman slowly stood, her hands trembling. She looked at the outsider with confusion. Why would you risk everything? For me?" The outsider looked at her with tired eyes. "Because no one else would." The woman's lips trembled. She wanted to speak, but her voice broke. She whispered softly, almost to herself. "My name is Saria. I am not just his wife. I am his prisoner." The outsider frowned. "Prisoner?" She nodded quickly, tears in her eyes. "Korga does not love me. He owns me. I was forced to marry him. When I tried to escape, he sent his police. They are not law. They are his dogs. If he finds me again, I will not survive." The outsider studied her face. He could see truth in her eyes. He had seen that same look before, in war, in broken cities, in the faces of those who suffered under tyrants. But now, he faced a decision. If he kept her safe, he would make an enemy of Korga, a name that already made entire colonies tremble. If he let her go, she would be captured again, and her screams would haunt him forever. A traitor whispered, "We are all dead." The outsider turned toward the door. We should leave before more arrive. This fight is not finished. Saraya followed, her steps unsteady but her eyes fixed on him. You don't know what you've started, human. You think you saved me tonight. But tomorrow, he will send his ships. The outsider glanced at her, his voice cold. Then let them come. Outside, the colony was quiet, but the night air felt heavier. The moons glowed above, watching like silent witnesses. Somewhere in the distance, alarms were already starting to sound. The decision was made. The outsider had chosen the harder path, the dangerous one. He had chosen to protect a woman who belonged to the most feared alien in this part of space. And in that moment, without knowing it, he had lit a spark that would soon set fire to the stars. The colony streets were empty as the outsider and Saria stepped into the night. The air smelled of dust and smoke. Broken neon lights flickered above the small shops. It looked peaceful, but the silence was not real. The silence was fear. People were already locking their doors, whispering behind windows. Everyone knew what would follow. The outsider walked with steady steps, his eyes always searching. He moved like a soldier, scanning every shadow. Saria walked behind him, her silver skin glowing under the twin moons. Her hands trembled, but she forced herself to keep moving. They reached an old storage yard at the edge of the colony. Rusted containers stood like sleeping giants. The outsider pushed open the heavy door of one empty unit. Inside it was dark and cold. He set down a lantern, filling the space with dim yellow light. Stay here, he said firmly. Saraya looked around, nervous. Do you think it is safe? The outsider shook his head. Nowhere is safe, but it will hide us for a while. She nodded slowly, then sat on a crate. For a moment there was only silence, the sound of her shaky breath echoing in the steel room. Finally she spoke. You should have let them take me. You do not understand who you are fighting against. The outsider leaned against the wall, arms crossed. Then tell me, who is Korga? Her eyes darkened. She lowered her head as if speaking his name itself carried danger. Korga is not just a gang leader. He controls half this sector. Smugglers, pirates, killers, they all obey him. Even the alien police serve him. He has power over governments, over colonies. He is more than a man. He is a shadow that covers the stars. The outsider stayed silent. His eyes narrowed. He had heard of warlords before, but the way she spoke made it sound like Korga was worse. Saraya's voice broke as she continued. I was taken from my world when I was still young. My people are rare. My blood, my body. They see us as precious. To them I am treasure. To Korga I was nothing more than a prize. He forced me into his palace, into his life, into his cage. For years I lived as his possession. Every day I tried to escape. Every day I failed. Until tonight, the outsider studied her carefully. Her eyes glistened with unshed tears. Her words were heavy with pain, but also with strength. You are not weak, he said quietly. Saraya shook her head. I tried to fight. But Korga is a monster. He kills without mercy. Whole families have burned because they crossed him. He rules through fear, and his name alone makes people bow. That is why no one in the bar moved. They would rather see me die than face him. The outsider's jaw tightened. He remembered the looks on the colonists' faces. Their silence was not cruelty, it was survival. Saraya's voice lowered to a whisper. And now you have taken me from his hands. Do you know what this means? He will not only come for me, he will come for you, for this colony, for anyone who gave me shelter. His wrath is endless. The outsider looked down at the lantern flame. He could feel the weight of her words, but he did not flinch. His voice was calm. I have fought monsters before. Saraya stared at him, disbelief in her eyes. You don't understand. Korga commands fleets, thousands of soldiers. He has money, weapons, influence. You are just one human. One man cannot fight an empire, the outsider met her gaze. His eyes were cold but steady. Sometimes one man is enough. Her lips parted, but no words came out. For the first time, she saw something in him. Something she had not seen in anyone else. Not fear, not greed, not surrender. She saw defiance. She whispered softly, almost in awe. Why? Why do you care? You could have stayed silent. You could have walked away. The outsider's face hardened. He did not speak for a long time. Finally, his voice came low, heavy with memory. Because I know what it's like to be caged, to be powerless, to wait for someone to help, and no one comes. His words hung in the air like a knife. Syria lowered her eyes, realizing that his scars were deeper than his skin. Suddenly, a sharp sound echoed outside, the distant roar of engines. Both of them froze. The outsider killed the lantern, plunging the room into darkness. Through a crack in the door, he saw a patrol ship sweep across the colony sky, its searchlight cutting through the night. "They are already searching," Soraya whispered. The outsider's voice was cold steel. "Let them search." When the ship passed, silence returned. But it was a heavy silence, filled with the knowledge that danger was coming closer. Soraya touched her chest, breathing unevenly. "There is something else you must know." The outsider's eyes met hers in the dim light of the moons. "What?" She hesitated, then spoke slowly. "Korga does not want me only for his pride. My people. We carry something in our blood, a gift or a curse. It makes us heal faster, live longer. Some say it can even unlock strength in others. That is why he will never let me go. To him, I'm not a wife. I'm a weapon." The outsider's face remained calm, but inside his thoughts raced. This was not just about saving a woman. This was about saving something much bigger. Syria leaned closer, her voice breaking. "If he takes me back, he will use me to create an army that no one can stop." The outsider's eyes burned with quiet fire. His decision was already made. "Then he will not take you back." At that moment, far above the colony, the stars shifted. Tiny lights began to appear in the black sky, distant at first, then growing brighter. Ships, not one, not 10, hundreds. The outsider and Soraya stepped out of the container, looking up. The colony alarms began to scream. Red lights flashed across the settlement. People ran to their homes, shouting in terror. Syria's face turned pale. Her voice trembled. "It's him. He's already here." The outsider clenched his fists, standing tall as the fleet descended. "Then the war begins tonight." The first light of dawn spread across the colony, but it brought no comfort. The twin suns rose slowly, painting the sky with orange fire. The streets, usually alive with traders and workers at this hour, were strangely quiet. Fear had stolen the morning. The outsider stood on the balcony of a half-broken building, his eyes on the horizon. His body was calm, but inside he was counting every sound, every shadow. He had not slept. He knew sleep would not come after the storm of last night. Behind him, Soraya sat against the wall, wrapped in a worn blanket. Her silver skin shimmered faintly in the sunlight. She looked exhausted. Her eyes carried heavy shadows. She had spent the night whispering prayers in a language the outsider did not know. Now her lips were silent, but her mind was full of dread. The colony alarm suddenly blared across the settlement, a long hollow wail that made windows shake and children cry. People began rushing out of their homes, shouting to each other. The outsider leaned forward, eyes narrowing. On the edge of the sky, dark shapes appeared. At first they looked like small dots, barely visible against the dawn. But as they grew larger, the truth became clear. Ships, not just a few, hundreds. Their black hulls reflected the morning light like sharp blades. They moved in perfect formation, spreading across the sky like a swarm of predators. The outsider counted quickly. 1, 2, 10, 20, 200 ships at least. The people of the colony froze in terror. Some dropped their baskets and tools. Others pulled their children inside. Traders locked their shops. The market square emptied within minutes, leaving only whispers behind closed doors. Syria came to the balcony, her face pale. Her voice shook. "It is him. It is Korga. He has come for me." The outsider said nothing. His jaw tightened as he studied the ships. They were not ordinary vessels. They were warships, sharp and heavy, built for destruction. Their engines hummed like thunder across the valley. From the center of the fleet, one massive battleship pushed forward. Its shadow swallowed the colony below. The insignia on its side glowed in blood-red light, the mark of the Black Fang. The outsider turned to Syria. His voice was steady, though the sky itself trembled. "Stay hidden. Whatever happens, do not leave this room." Syria grabbed his arm, her eyes desperate. "You cannot fight them. They will crush everything, please. If they see you with me, they will kill you too." The outsider looked into her eyes. His voice was low, calm, unshakable. "They already want me dead. Hiding will not change that." She tried to speak again, but her words failed. She could only watch as he turned and walked down the broken stairs, out into the colony like a dark god. Its engines roared, dust and debris whipping through the streets. Then a voice boomed from the ship's speakers. Deep, harsh, commanding. "Human, you have taken what belongs to me. You have spilled the blood of my servants. You have insulted the Black Fang." The outsider stood still, unflinching. The voice continued, louder, angrier. "I am Korga, leader of the Fang. king of these stars. Hand her over now and I may show mercy to this colony. The outsider's eyes were locked on the ship. His silence was not weakness, it was defiance. From the crowd someone shouted in fear, "Give her to him!" "Save us," another cried. "Do not doom us all." The people were torn. Some wanted to resist, but most wanted to survive. To them, Syria was not hope. She was a curse. High above, the ship's weapons powered on, glowing with deadly red light. The sound of charging energy echoed like a storm. Korga's voice thundered again. "This is your last chance, human. Surrender the woman, or I will burn this place to ashes." The outsider's heart was steady. His past had prepared him for this moment. War was not new to him. He had seen worse skies. But this time it was different. He was not fighting for orders. Not for money. Not for glory. He was fighting for a promise. Behind him, Syria stepped out of the building despite his warning. Her silver skin shone in the sunlight, making her impossible to hide. The crowd gasped in fear. Korga's laughter shook the air. "There she is, my lost jewel. You think you can escape me, Syria? You think a single human can protect you from me?" Syria's voice cracked as she shouted back. "I will never return to you. I would rather die than be your prisoner again." Her words echoed through the square. For a brief moment, silence followed, a silence heavy with fire. The outsider stepped forward, standing between Syria and the sky. His voice was calm, but it carried like steel. "Then she will not go back. Not while I stand." The crowd gasped again. Some covered their faces in despair. Others stared in disbelief. Korga's laughter turned into a roar of rage. "Then you will die with her, human, and all who stand with you will die as well." The weapons of the battleship locked onto the colony. The ground shook. The air buzzed with deadly power. And in that moment, as fear gripped every soul in the colony, the outsider whispered only 3 words to himself: "Let them come." The square was silent yet alive with terror. Above the colony, the massive battleship blocked the rising suns. The air itself seemed to freeze under its shadow. Then with a deep metallic groan, the warship's belly opened. A transport bay lit up with red light. Engines roared. Dropships, dark and sharp like steel daggers, fell from the sky. The ground shook as they landed in the square, raising clouds of dust and ash. The outsider stood in the middle, his boots planted firmly on the cracked stone. He did not move even as the first ramp lowered. The crowd scattered, running to hide. Mothers clutched their children. Traders abandoned their stalls. Doors slammed shut across the colony. Yet behind shutters and broken windows, eyes still watched, wide with fear. From the dropships, armored soldiers marched out. They were tall, broad, and merciless, their black armor marked with the crimson fangs of Korga's clan. Their weapons glowed faintly, humming with deadly power. The leader of the squad stepped forward. His voice was amplified through his helmet, a deep growl that made the air vibrate. "Human, step aside. She is ours." The outsider did not move. He stood between the soldiers and Syria, who was trembling behind him. Her silver skin glowed faintly, a beacon that could not be hidden. The leader raised his weapon, pointing it straight at the outsider's chest. "Move or die where you stand." The outsider's voice was calm, steady like a stone against a storm. "You will not take her." The soldiers laughed, cruel and sharp. One of them sneered. "He thinks he can stop us." "One man against the Fang," the leader growled. "Kill him." In an instant, the soldiers rushed forward. The first swung his blade, glowing with energy. The outsider dodged, grabbed the soldier's arm, and slammed him into the ground. The blade clattered, sparking on the stone. The second soldier fired his rifle. The outsider rolled, the shot blasting a wall into dust. He leapt forward, striking with brutal precision. His fist cracked into the soldier's helmet, sending him sprawling. Syria gasped as the fight unfolded. She wanted to scream, to stop him, but her voice was trapped in her throat. More soldiers poured from the ships. The square erupted into chaos. Energy blasts lit the air, breaking stone and shattering glass. The outsider moved like a shadow, fast and merciless. Every strike was efficient, every movement sharp. He fought not with rage, but with clarity. He had been here before, in war and fire and blood, yet numbers pressed hard. For every soldier he knocked down, 2 more came. His body ached, his arms heavy, but he did not stop. The leader shouted over the battle. "Hold him down. Take the woman." 2 soldiers broke past the outsider, rushing toward Syria. She screamed, stumbling back, but before they could touch her, the outsider tore through them like a storm. He smashed one into a wall, his skull cracking against steel, then kicked the other into the dust. Syria's eyes filled with tears. She had never seen anyone fight like this. Not against Korga's men, not without fear. The soldiers regrouped, circling him. Blades hummed, rifles glowed, boots crunched over broken stone. The outsider stood in the center, blood dripping from a cut on his forehead, his chest rising and falling heavy. But his eyes were steady. The leader stepped forward again. His voice was full of anger. "You are strong, human, but you are still only one. You cannot fight us all." The outsider's voice was low, almost a whisper. "Then I will die standing." The soldiers roared and charged again, but then something unexpected happened. From the rooftops, a stone flew down, smashing into a soldier's helmet. The soldier staggered. Another stone followed. Then another. The colonists. Men and women stepped out from hiding, their faces pale but their hands steady. They threw rocks, metal pipes, anything they could find. Some carried old rifles, others brandished tools as weapons. The crowd shouted as one, "He will not stand alone." The soldiers turned in confusion, their formation broken. The outsider moved like lightning, striking again, cutting through the distracted enemies. For the first time, the soldiers of the Fang stumbled. Syria's heart pounded. She saw the fear spreading, not among the colonists, but among the soldiers. They were not used to resistance. They were used to obedience, silence, surrender. The leader roared in fury, his voice cracking through the chaos. "Enough, end them all!" His weapon glowed, charging for a deadly strike. But before he could fire, the outsider slammed into him, both crashing to the ground. The weapon discharged into the sky, splitting clouds with fire. The outsider pinned the leader down, fists striking again and again. The helmet cracked, sparks flew, blood sprayed. The leader roared, but the outsider's strength was unyielding. With one final strike, the leader went limp. The soldiers froze. For a heartbeat, they hesitated. And in that pause, the colonists roared louder, charging forward. The square became a battlefield. Stones against rifles, courage against armor. Chaos burned in every corner. Above, the massive battleship still hovered, watching, and then through the ship's speakers, a voice thundered, deeper, darker, more powerful than before. Korga himself. "You dare fight my soldiers? You dare defy me, human? Very well. If it is war you want, then war you shall have." The ground trembled as more dropships prepared to descend. The outsider stood in the center of the burning square, blood on his face, dust in his lungs, but fire in his eyes. Syria clung to his arm, her voice breaking with fear. "They will never stop. Not until you are dead." The outsider's gaze turned upward to the sky filled with ships. His voice was steady, sharp as steel. "Then let them try." The colony held its breath. The real war was only beginning. The square still burned with smoke and broken stone. Colonists gathered in silence, their eyes wide, their bodies trembling after the clash. The bodies of armored soldiers lay scattered across the ground. Some groaned in pain, others did not move at all. The outsider stood among them, blood running down the side of his face. His chest rose and fell heavily, his fists still clenched. Syria stood close, her silver skin marked with dust and scratches. She looked at him as if he were something more than human, something she could not explain. Above, the battleship still hovered like a black mountain in the sky. Its shadow swallowed the colony whole. From its speakers, Korga's voice rumbled again, heavy and cruel. "You have surprised me, human. Few dare to raise their hand against my Fang. Fewer still survive." The outsider raised his head, eyes fixed on the massive ship. He said nothing. Korga's laughter rolled through the air like thunder. "You fight like a beast, strong, ruthless. You even made these weak colonists rise for the first time in their miserable lives. Perhaps you are more than I thought." The colonists shivered. Some whispered in fear. Others looked at the outsider with cautious hope. Syria whispered, her voice trembling, "Do not listen to him. He twists every word. He offers poison in the shape of gold." But the outsider remained silent, waiting. The ground shook as the battleship released another drop. This one was not filled with soldiers. Instead, a single large craft descended, sleek, armored, glowing with crimson lights. It landed with a deep crash in the squew. And then, he appeared, Korga. He was taller than any of his soldiers, his armor thicker, his presence heavier. His face was marked with scars, his eyes glowing like molten fire. The crimson insignia of the fang blazed across his chest plate. When he stepped onto the stone, the ground itself seemed to tremble. The colonist shrank back in terror. Syria's breath caught in her throat. She whispered, "It is him." Korga's gaze fell upon her first. A cruel smile spread across his face. "My jewel, my prize. You thought you could escape me?" "Hide behind a human." Syria trembled, but before she could answer, the outsider stepped forward, blocking Korga's view. His voice was steady. "She is not yours." Korga chuckled, deep and mocking. "Brave words for a single man. Do you know what I could do with one command? I could burn this colony to ash. I could wipe out every family, every child, every coward hiding behind those walls. And yet here you stand, unbroken." He leaned closer, his glowing eyes narrowing. "Tell me, human, what are you? A soldier? A mercenary? Or simply a fool who doesn't know when to bow?" The outsider's voice was calm. "I am just a man who chose not to stay silent." Korga's laughter shook the air again. But this time it was not cruel, it was amused. "Good, very good. You interest me. Do you know how rare that is? Fear controls everyone. They kneel, they beg, they serve. But you resist. And I respect resistance," the colonist gasped in shock. Syria's eyes widened in horror. She whispered, "No. Don't believe him." Korga raised his arms, his voice booming. "I offer you a choice, human. Join me, stand at my side. With your strength and my power, we could rule this sector together. These weaklings would tremble at your name. No one would dare touch you. You would have wealth, ships, soldiers, everything." The words hung heavy in the air. The colonists stared in silence. Some even looked at the outsider with doubt, with fear. Would he betray them? Syria's voice broke. "He is lying. He promises glory, but he only brings chains. He offered me the same once. And then he made me his prisoner." Korga's eyes snapped toward her, fury flashing. "Silence." But Syria did not stop. Her voice grew stronger. "He will make you his weapon, human. Just as he tried to make me. Do not listen, do not." Korga raised his massive gauntlet, energy sparking in his palm. In an instant, a bolt of red lightning shot forward. Syria screamed as the blast struck near her feet, the ground exploding in shards of stone. The outsider moved instantly, pulling her back behind him. His face hardened, his eyes turning to fire. Korga laughed again. "See? You protect her, but how long will you last? She is nothing but a burden to you. But join me, and I will give you the stars." The outsider stood silent, his fists tight. His mind was not filled with greed, but with memory. He remembered the cages of war, the screams of the helpless, the weight of promises broken. He had lived under the rule of monsters before. He would never bow again. His voice came low, steady, and final. "I am not for sale," the colonists gasped. Syria's eyes filled with relief. Korga's smile faded. His voice turned into a growl. "Then you choose death." The air grew heavy. Soldiers surrounded the square once more, weapons raised, eyes burning with hate. The colonists trembled, clutching each other. But the outsider did not move back. He stood taller, stronger, his shadow stretching long under the suns. Korga's voice thundered like the crash of worlds. "You had your chance, human. Now I will tear this colony apart piece by piece, and when nothing remains, your name will be cursed in ash." The outsider's voice was sharp as a blade. "Then you will find me in the ashes." The square erupted with screams as the soldiers charged again. Blades hummed, rifles burned, boots thundered. The confrontation had ended. The war had truly begun. The colony shook under the roar of engines and the cries of war. Soldiers of the Black Fang charged across the square, weapons glowing, armor shining with crimson marks. Colonists screamed, ducking for cover behind broken walls and shattered carts. The outsider stood tall in the center, his fists tight, his eyes burning with fire. Syria clung behind him, trembling but refusing to look away. Korga's massive form loomed just ahead, his shadow stretching wide. His laughter echoed like thunder. "You will regret this, human," Korga roared. "No one refuses me and lives." The first wave of soldiers attacked. Blades slashed, rifles spat energy bolts. The outsider moved with deadly precision, striking, dodging, breaking through armor with brutal force. Every motion was sharp, practiced. He fought not only for himself, but for Syria, for the colony, for the promise he had made. Colonists, inspired by his defiance, joined the fight. Some carried old rifles, others only stones and pipes, but they fought with courage they had never known. For the first time in years, the colony resisted instead of surrendering. Still, the Fang soldiers were too many. Their training, their weapons, their numbers pressed harder and harder. The square filled with smoke, dust, and blood. The outsider fought like a storm, but even storms break when the tide is endless. Korga stepped forward, his armored boots crushing stone. His voice was cruel. You are strong, human, but strength alone will not save you. Look around. Your colony bleeds. Your people fall. You cannot win. The outsider's face was calm, though sweat and blood mixed on his skin. He answered in a voice steady as steel. Maybe not, but I will not kneel. Korga's laughter shook the sky. He raised his massive gauntlet, red energy crackling between his claws. Then I will break you myself. The ground shook as Korga charged. He swung his glowing fist like a hammer. The outsider braced, dodged, and struck back, their clash exploding in sparks. The force of their blows shattered walls and sent soldiers stumbling away. Soraya screamed as the two figures collided again and again, the human and the warlord locked in battle, their fight echoing across the colony. The colonists watched, frozen between terror and hope. For a moment it seemed as if the outsider could stand against even Korga. And then, the sky screamed, a new sound tore across the heavens. Engines louder, sharper, heavier than before. The people looked up. At first, confusion. Then horror. Another fleet, not black ships this time. These were silver and blue, marked with the insignia of the Interstellar Authority, the alien police. Their formation was tighter, their numbers greater. 200 ships, maybe more, descending fast. The colonists gasped. Some cried out in despair. The police! They've come! But this was not salvation. The Authority did not come to protect colonies. They came to crush rebellions, to restore order, to punish anyone who defied their control. And tonight the colony had dared to fight back. Syria's face turned pale, her voice cracked with fear. No, not them. They don't want justice. They want power. They'll kill everyone. Korga's men, the colonists, even you. Korga stopped mid-strike, his glowing eyes lifting toward the sky. For the first time, his laughter ceased. His growl rumbled low. So, the cowards arrive. They think they can steal my prize. The outsider glanced upward, his jaw tightening. He had seen many enemies before, but never two armies at once. The police ships broke through the clouds, their sirens howling, their weapons glowing bright. Spotlights cut through the dust, locking onto the colony square. A voice boomed from above, cold and merciless. Attention! This colony is under Authority control. All armed resistance will be destroyed. Surrender immediately. The colonists cried out in panic. Soldiers of the Fang looked around, uncertain. Even Korga's own men stepped back, unsure of what came next. Soraya clutched the outsider's arm, her eyes wide with terror. This is worse than I feared. If the police and the Fang fight here, the colony will be destroyed. Everyone will die. The outsider's gaze stayed fixed on the sky. His voice was low, grim. Then we stand in the fire. Above, the Authority fleet spread across the heavens, their weapons locked onto both sides. The colony shook as the first warning blast struck the outskirts, buildings collapsing in flames. Korga roared in fury, his voice carrying across the chaos. They dare challenge me. They dare touch what is mine. He turned toward the outsider, his eyes blazing. Human, you wanted war? Then fight beside me and we will tear them apart. The outsider stood silent, his fists clenched, his chest rising with heavy breath. On one side, the tyrant who enslaved Soraya. On the other, the Authority who would burn the colony without mercy. Both enemies, both unstoppable. The colonists looked at him with desperate eyes. Some shouted, "What do we do?" Others cried, "Save us." Syria whispered, her voice breaking. You cannot fight them all. No one can. The outsider's gaze shifted from the fleet above to the warlord before him. His face was calm, though the world trembled. His voice came cold, steady, final. Then we fight anyway. The ground shook as the first Authority troops began to descend from the sky.